Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome to the final episode of the Spontaneous Mutation podcast. For now, anyway. I'm your host, Halley, LOL. And if you've made it this far, it means our time together is coming to an end. I'm so grateful to all of you for coming along on this journey. And I don't know about you, but I have learned so much. I am not the same person that I was when I started. And you learn so much about yourself when you take on projects like this. When I began going back through these episodes to edit them, I noticed I was asking everybody about their parents. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. I think I was probably looking for somebody that had a similar background as mine. And maybe it's a good thing that I couldn't find that. I just wanted to put it out there because I think there are a lot of people out there who probably did grow up similarly to how I did. I just want to give me and you listening out there just a little bit of grace here because there's so many layers to grief. And if you're anything like me, you got really, really good at compartmentalizing, especially when it came to the medical stuff. Because you have to kind of check out a little bit when your body is just continuously up for, examination and observation and intervention. And in many of these episodes, we talk about that integration, that coming out, that finally accepting what was, what is of who you are on your own terms. But it doesn't mean that it is easy. It doesn't mean that it's quick. This has taken me years to get to this place. And ultimately, it's what brought me to do this podcast. Sometimes it baffles me that it took me this long to truly integrate my facial difference on my own terms. But if I think about it, I've just been doing triage my whole life. So if you're out there doing triage, maybe you're just in the first stages of talking about your facial difference and meeting other people with facial differences, or maybe you're deep in this identity and proudly becoming an advocate or activist, or maybe you're even an expert in it like we've had, for the guests on this podcast. Wherever you are, there is a place for you and there is a story to be told. Okay. That was important for me to say. And now I want to talk a little bit about the music you've been hearing throughout this podcast. I did my best to tell a story in these songs, but I knew there was so much more to them, and the conversations, I just didn't want it to be lost what these stories were really about. So this final song that you're listening to, it's called The Raven and the Ponderosa Pine. And this song was inspired by trees. I was down in Nashville at a songwriting retreat, and I met someone named Jackie, and we had lunch before the retreat. We met up, and I was telling her about my time in Maine and how I had found so much peace and self-acceptance among the trees. And this is why I love songwriters, because Jackie didn't blink at all. She was like, oh yeah. And a few months later, Jackie sends me this Ram Dass quote, which was basically our conversation that we had had, except very beautifully said. And so I wanted to share it with you here. He says, when you go out into the woods and you look at trees, you see all these different trees. And some of them are bent, and some of them are straight, and some of them are evergreens, and some of them are whatever. And you look at the tree and you allow it. You see why it is the way it is. You sort of understand that it didn't get enough light, and so it turned that way, and you don't get all emotional about it. You just allow it. You appreciate the tree. And the minute you get near humans, you lose all that. And you are constantly saying you are to this or I'm to this. That judging mind comes in. And so I practice turning people into trees, which means appreciating them just the way they are. So this quote was really a catalyst for me in imagining the first line of The Raven and the Ponderosa Pine, which is, "If I was a tree, they'd call me a Ponderosa Pine." And I grew up watching my mom's favorite, which were cowboy movies, so I'm very familiar with cowboy songs. And of course, this had to be a cowboy song. There's so much mythology around the American cowboy, so many tropes. And when we think about storytelling, which we've been weaving in and out of this podcast, you can't help but think about, in America, how strong this idea of the rugged individual is and how persistent it is. And it often rubs up right against our reality, which is that we really are interdependent creatures. Our whole society would collapse if we did not have this interdependence. But the way it's played out in Hollywood, and certainly the mythology of the American West and the cowboy, is that it's these strong individuals who lasso all the bandits by themselves. It's false, but it does not mean it's not pervasive. And I would suspect it has kept many of us from asking for help when we actually needed it, because we had this expectation that we should be able to figure this out on our own. And I think you and I and everybody needs a reminder of just how much we need each other. The disability community has said this for a long, long time. We are not lone cowboys doing this by ourselves. It's really easy to believe that we're isolated. This is kind of where this song came from, this joke that, I would be this Ponderosa Pine sitting by myself on a ledge and in this desolate and dramatic way, because that's how I felt a lot of my life. I was called an anomaly. And in my experience, doing this triage on myself and really trying to heal, I've learned that it's pretty typical of children that come from dysfunctional families to isolate and be hyper independent, because you learn pretty early on that the adults around you are not coming to help you. So you have to become pretty scrappy and self-sufficient. These are not bad traits to have, quite frankly. I think there's a lot of hyper-functional people out there, myself included, who do pretty well because of it. Now, I could pathologize all the livelong day, but the fact is, this is everywhere, this messaging, especially with creatives. It's like, you're the lone singer-songwriter or the lone artist, and it's really easy to isolate in that belief. However, you isolate too long and you forget what it's like to let people in. And this sets the scene for what this song is really about. We think we're alone, but we are not alone. Have you ever met somebody who just kind of came out of nowhere? You really weren't expecting them, but they changed things for you. Throughout time, the raven has been a symbol of change. And sometimes the change is not welcome at first at all. It is foreign, it is painful, and sometimes you don't get the resolution that you desperately want. It happened and it sent you on a new path, and it was your spontaneous mutation, and then it was just up to you to see what was next. It's an invitation to take the story that you thought you knew and giving it the space to become what it has to be. So this is why I wanted to end on this song in particular, because you all are my ravens. You are. So many of you helped and contributed to the fundraiser to make this happen. You put your trust in me to create a project that did not exist before. And that faith you had in me, it changed me. More importantly, we now have more positive representation in this world for people with facial differences to discuss the complexities of our lives and how we build a future and create the new stories that we want to share with the world about our lives. I'm not even sure, but this might be the first musical album about facial difference. I hope if I'm wrong, you'll let me know, because I want to listen to more music. That's why I had to make this. And you better believe I did not do this alone. It was so important to me to bring in a huge team on this project to reinforce that I'm not a lonesome cowboy, I'm not a lonesome Ponderosa Pine, and neither are you. And we need help to make big things happen. Two of the really important ravens on this project are the producers of this podcast. That's Carrie Weddington and Miles McCall. You two are amazing. I'm so grateful to you. Your consistency, your insights, your sense of humor, and your faith in me, I will remember forever. Thank you. I wanted to let you know that leading up to this project was 2 years of therapy and coaching, and I want to thank Jen Walker, LCSW, for the time she spent with me, because I got to tell you, a lot of what therapy is and coaching and it's rewriting your stories, right? And I had a lot of beliefs that weren't mine. Quite frankly, I had collected them along the way from a lot of the places we talked about in these episodes. And as Rashir Dobson says, I'm a big proponent of therapy, but also any kind of modality that works for you. I learned so many lessons from our guests, and one thing Amanda LeDuc said that I thought was so important was that this process is iterative. We're not going to get it right on the first time. This podcast is probably going to date itself, very soon, because our language is changing, everything is changing, as Soros says, as more people become empowered. And that's really exciting to me. It's such a privilege to begin the first iteration of the Spontaneous Mutation podcast with our guests. That was Dr. Kathleen Bogart, Amanda LeDuc, Sora Kasaga, Rashira Dobson, and David Roche. I want to thank you so much and sending so much love to you all for taking the time to begin this conversation with me, and also open up your hearts to share your own experiences, your own spontaneous mutations. Now, the musical album of Spontaneous Mutation was produced by Dave Brophy, who is absolutely a raven. He has been helping me out sonically for years now, and he really helped bring what was a lot of spontaneous mutations into, at least like the same galaxy. These songs span quite a few genres, so thank you, Dave. And a quick roll call of the musicians that you heard making this beautiful music that's run all throughout this podcast. That's James Rohr on keys. He's also the voice of the Raven that you'll hear very soon. That's Joe McMahon on bass. That's Cody Nilsson on guitar. Dave Brophy on drums. We've got Elisa Amador singing on 3 of these songs. And Dr. Nora Willauer playing cello. Mary Patterson also bailed me out at the last minute and sang some backups on Daphne. I almost don't want to say it. I don't want to say that it's the end. We have come to the end of the podcast. Whew! There were so many ways we could have gone with this. So many guests we could have asked on. We had such a small window of time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for trying something new, learning something new. And can I ask you a favor? If you got something from this podcast, if you were moved in any way and you have somebody in your life you think might benefit from hearing it, will you share it? I have found that word of mouth is the best way for us to make trusted connections and find the things that are meant for us. Now, the thing about spontaneous mutations is that they can happen anytime. I cannot wait to see the possibilities of this project. That said, I'm going to leave you with the same question I started with, which is, when was your spontaneous mutation?
Yeah, you had to be real sure. I wasn't going around shaking just anybody's dream. Despite my reputation, my intentions, they were pure. I was exactly where I needed to be. You better throw your expectations to the wind and watch them fly. Go ahead and trade them all in for this moment in time of the raven and the Ponderosa Pine. I was getting tired of keeping watch on this desert sand, and I was wondering